And I think you might know who this person is, a lady by the name of Bri Norton, whose presentation is about research ops, what is it, and where does accessibility fit in. Please make welcome Bri.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm a little bit of a mix of backgrounds. I'm a software engineer, I do accessibility, and I've recently been quite involved in the research ops community. Is anyone else here part of the research ops community? Has anyone heard of the research ops community? Yes, Adam's down here. Well, I'm going to share with you what the research ops community is and how we as accessibility experts can tap into that, and also that they might be basically looking to us as well as the research ops community starts to grow. So what is research ops? It's the mechanisms and strategies that set user research in motion. It provides the roles, tools, and processes needed to support researchers in delivering and scaling the impact and craft across an organisation. Now, this is a summary and a description that's provided by at Team ReOps. It's a global open community. They ran global workshops across the world a couple of years ago, and they developed a research ops framework to help support user researchers. It was about shaping a new practice that I think accessibility experts really do need to be a part of, and a community that we can really tap into. And it was also about making friends. So what they did is they did this workshop to try and work out what is involved in research operations and operationalising user research. And I've got up here on a slide some details about the 8 pillars of user research. And I'm going to go into more detail on those pillars as I go through, as I match them up with some where accessibility aspects can fit in. So this is a lot. There's environment, scope, people, organisational context, recruitment and admin, data and knowledge management, governance, tools and infrastructure. And that's a lot just for the researchers to worry about, and they haven't even started doing any research yet. What they did is, as part of these workshops, is also break up where a research operations kind of management area could take some of those tasks that I'm going to go into more detail soon, and take that on so the user researchers could actually get on with their job. So the other aspect of this is where does accessibility, compliance and best practice fit in? So I'm going to go through the 8 pillars, and I'm going to discuss maybe where some WCAG principles can fit in and some inclusive design principles can fit in. I have this great quote from Derek Featherstone about accessibility as an outcome, inclusive design as a process. Accessibility is about creating products that are usable by everyone. Inclusive design, on the other hand, is a mindset that involves understanding user diversity. And this is actually really quite important in the research ops and the user research field, because we do want to make sure that accessibility checks are done along the way when you do user research. So when you start to do research operations and you're starting to manage the data and the research and reuse it and share it, you also want to think about that inclusive design and how you're going to bring that in as well. So the first pillar from the user research framework is about the environment. They discuss, people silos, education, value of research, buy-in, pushback, internally focused, stakeholders, executives and colleagues. And if we kind of think about this environment, where would accessibility and inclusive design fit in? We'd probably want to think about not just the maturity of the research ops of the organisation, but what's the maturity of the accessibility aspects of the organisation. This is about collaboration. It's about bringing together team members who already understand accessibility is critical. Do they understand the roles and needs of their users? Educate and promote, share knowledge across the teams. Accessibility experts want to be a part of that as well. Identifying opportunities for education and training, and that includes accessibility and inclusive design training for those user researchers. The next pillar is around scope. So you talk about cadence and sharing insights, prioritisation, integrating insights, processes, methods, protocols. Research is a team sport. This is where you could probably start to think about where do you bring in your edge case users? How do you understand WCAG and bring that into your agile processes or whatever methodology you're using? It's also about developing your guidelines and templates. So reusing global templates. Educate non-researchers, especially bringing in the accessibility aspects of that. And also around when you're bringing in your WCAG, bringing that into your JIRA tasking, acceptance criteria, and those kinds of things. The next pillar is around people. So community of practice, professional development, staffing of user researchers, mature career paths, leadership, organisation design. This is especially important to bring in accessibility awareness and who are those people they can talk to and how can they build their community of practice, their leadership and understanding of accessibility as well. It's about creating those inclusive teams, bringing in expertise at the right time. When you're doing your feature development, determine the right people to have in those teams. And we all know here that we would love to have accessibility built in a bit earlier as well. And this is also about the mix of manual and automated testing. The next one is organisational context. So we all know there's logistics around doing user research. You need to have your space, your time, your resources, a budget. What's the return on investment, the business constraints, market forces and organisation maturity. Again, this is where you can align with accessibility around your business benefits. Thank you, Amanda. I think we might need to share more of those slides. Using those business benefits, explaining that embedding early will reduce rework costs. Development and update costs are reduced, and identifying opportunities to listen to diverse users earlier in the process. Recruitment and admin. This takes a lot of time for user researchers, and they really could do some help from people who are actually experienced at doing recruitment and admin. Incentives, scheduling, logistics, panel management, participation coordination, paperwork, involving. This is where you need to work with these recruitment people that you can involve all users at all stages and diverse range of users. This is where, as accessibility experts, we can actually explain that we might need to look at different recruitment companies and hire different participants from different areas. How do you, and this is where you can understand the problem, how to contact and listen to a diverse range of users so that they can share their stories. And also understand how to share learnings and problems users may have when using assistive technologies. The next pillar is around data and knowledge management. This is around your research library, your data silos, your data gardening, document template, knowledge management. This is where maybe more of the WCAG and procurement compliance needs to come in, and they need to talk to you as an accessibility practitioner to help them to do that in whatever tools or software they might be developing for their research ops. You might want to understand a little bit more how they store and access data saved to ensure participants' privacy. The next one is governance. So in the EU, GDPR, which is about data privacy, there's legal, infosec, risk assessments, consent and ethics. And I think as accessibility practitioners and what we've heard over the last few days around our standards and policies and laws, we know a little bit more that can help user researchers and research ops people understand that for a diverse range of users. Around human rights, the other laws, compliance, consent and sensitivity to users' needs. And Eloise, your workshop definitely covered a lot of that. The last one is tools and infrastructure. And this is accessibility experts, we can come in and do those checks as we go along. Making sure they're WCAG compliant, making sure the procurement processes are in place. The research ops community is growing so fast as a practice, and they're coming up with new tools. But are they accessible? Not necessarily. So we need to use what resources and tools are already available to make it accessible during the process. Design systems are already out there. There's online alley design systems that you can use and refers to standards and guides and feeding that back into the research ops community as well. Oh, I think that's it. So basically the summary of the ResearchOps community, as highlighted from Kate Townsey, was hiring ResearchOps people means your researchers can focus on what they're good at. And I think that comes down to accessibility practitioners as well. It's working with those teams. It's understanding who has a specialisation in different areas and picking up on that. And if you'd like to know more about this lovely open community, follow on Twitter at Team ReOps. You can join the conversation at #ResearchOps. There's a Slack waitlist you can share from the Medium website. And also I'm happy to share some details as well. Thank you very much.
Excellent. And Bri's just disappeared. Do we have any questions for Bri before we break to morning tea?
Hi, Bri, and to the other web accessibility organisations in the room. It's not just recruitment through employment agencies, as Zell mentioned yesterday. Disability employment agencies is probably a more logical place to be looking for users. But even with that, they're not known for their efficiencies. So I would suggest contacting some of the disability advocacy organisations who, you know, can easily tap into our members straight away and immediately and get a focus group going if that's what you need. Also, take into consideration if you're inviting people to do user testing at your premises or your locations, the difficulties for someone who's blind or vision impaired or deafblind accessing a place that they're not familiar with is a bit of a barrier, and it might prevent them volunteering to be a user tester. Little simple things like have someone on the ground floor meet them as they arrive in the building, not expect them to find level 5, which is around the corner, past the toilets, past the kitchen. You know, those are just some of the suggestions that I would make as an advocate.
No, excellent, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Excellent, we're back on time. Thank you so much, Bri, and everyone. Help me in thanking Bri as well. Okay, I could hear all the